All right, we're back on episode 5 of the John Gill podcast show. Super excited to have my great friend here, Garrett Lynch, multifamily investor and managing partner here of the Nighthawk Equity, based in Arizona. Garrett, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, John. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So I know you've been up here now for a while. It seems like you start your day off at what 5:30. Hit the gym and ready to attack the day.
Yeah, man. I'm usually up like 5:30, and then I have a class I go to at like 6 a.m. every day. So that's been a routine as of the last year,
Nice.
and it starts things out right.
Well, there it is, man. Well, why don't you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about yourself for those just tuning in, more about yourself and about the company.
Sure. Yeah. So I got into real estate probably I think in 2011. Started doing some wholesale deals on the south side of Chicago. Actually, it's about the time I met you.
That's right.
um, we had some mutual acquaintances at that time, and we were just doing selling south side deals. And basically, I would find investors from different countries and bring them in to buy real estate in Chicago. And I realized that was only probably going to last for so long, and so decided to make a pivot. And I was at the time I was working in nightclubs as well, so I was doing kind of nightclubs.
I
And
was going to
wholesaling.
ask you, yeah, what were you doing prior to the
Yeah,
real
yeah,
estate? I mean, so you were doing nightclubs, and how was that transition? You went from nightclubs to real estate.
yeah. So I was doing nightclubs, and like I was about 2 years into it. I just graduated college, and I was like, well, I'm good at throwing parties,
Where
so I
did you
should
go?
probably do this. Where did I go to college? Illinois State.
Nice.
So I went to Illinois State, and I was like a big frat guy at Illinois State, and I was throwing a lot of events there and stuff. And I'm like, well, maybe I could do this, for a living. Let's see how that goes. Not really knowing much about what was going on. I was in Chicago, so I'm from Central Illinois to Chicago, and then I moved downtown. I started out sleeping on someone's couch for cost me like $300 a month,
That's awesome.
and then we just went and threw parties in the city, and that was like kind of where I got. I kind of worked my way into that whole scene. I soon realized that was just not going to go anywhere productive for me long term. So I was like, all right, I gotta look for something better than this. This is not, typically you look at like the highest level people in the industry you want to be in. What are they doing? What is their life like?
Sure.
And I saw that. I was like, these club owners are miserable. I don't want to be like those guys. Um, so I decided to figure out a way to pivot. And I met someone that was doing actually in the clubs, going a little crazy, and so I met that person, and I was like, "What do you do?" And he's like, "Well, I own 150 houses," and I'm like, "What is that about?" And so,
Right. He's the
yeah.
one
And so
buying all
then,
the expensive champagne, the full bottle service, I assume.
yeah, exactly. And so we had we kind of became friends, and through that process. We decided that we started working together on some wholesale stuff, and so that's kind of how I got into it. And I was basically there's a guy that was buying properties on the south side, and he needed someone to sell them. He was a car dealer and decided to get into this real estate game, and so we're like, okay, well, we can sell these guys. This guy's going to rehab them, and then we'll get a commission or whatever for selling these things. And so we kind of started out in that respect, and then it just things kept elevating. I had some investors that from Canada and elsewhere, and ended up going to work for a guy that had about 1,000 apartments, alongside the guy that I originally met, and then kind of learned a little bit about the bigger game. And that it was a short time. It was like 6 months,
hmm
and so then.
I think
Once we kind
actually
of
you and I went to Miami for one of those events
We did, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yep, we went to Miami for an event. That's
What?
when I was working with that guy up in Skokie. So that was interesting. And then that at that time, I was still like, I think I was like W-2 at that guy, and we were like, we saw like a deal that I think he passed on the deal, and we were like, man, we should buy that deal. But we were kind of scared, and then uh, ended up making the transition away from that whole situation. And um, I think my partner at the time was had kind of some of the pieces in place from his last business, and then we joined forces, and then went on a bit of a buying spree starting in 2013. So we started a company at that time, and we bought, over the next 3 years, about 3,400 apartments. Just worked 16-hour days and built this whole huge company, and it
Amazing.
was a
And let me just say,
pretty big scaling opportunity.
yeah, I remember it was insane because I remember at the beginning having brokered, well, I sent you guys a few deals. Next thing you know, I mean, it was from 100 units, then, 400, and then six, then thousands. I was blown away, man. How can what do you, con-
Well,
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, I mean, like, it started out with D-class stuff, because we knew the South Side of Chicago, so we're like, well, we were already kind of like looking at these portfolios, or people selling portfolios of like single family homes, 2 and 3 flats, and we were just getting blanket loans and buying them in these portfolio situations. So it's kind of like buying apartment complexes, but not quite, because they're all in different locations. I mean, they were residential, like small apartment complexes and single families, stuff like that. So we started acquiring these portfolios of D-class stuff, because it's what we knew at the time, because that's what we were doing before. And so those apartment complexes were, a real big management headache, and I don't think we realized that. But about half of them were Section 8, and about half of them were not. So we had to convert the entire portfolio to Section 8, because the jobs were very transient in the South Side. So we ended up converting that portfolio, but in the meantime, kept buying. We never slowed down. We were just like, listen, we can buy real estate, but we can't. We don't really know the management game so much, but we can figure it out. We'll figure it out. So we started third party managing these things, and we got burned a few times, like probably 3 times in a row. We got burned by the property management companies, and so we're like, you know what? We were terrified. I remember we were terrified to vertically integrate. We just did it. Like, all right, let's just start a management company and figure it out. And so within, like, I think the first year we probably had about maybe 700 apartments, around that,
Amazing.
mostly D-class stuff. But we bought a few on the outskirts of Chicago, so it was like in some of the suburbs. We did our first like 24 unit, then we did I think a 50 unit in Worth, and then we did a 71 unit. Remember that one? And so we had this like thing going, and then that was like the biggest that we got to. And then I think we found one in Iowa that was like 120 units. So like, oh, let's try this one, and just kept buying bigger deals. And then all of a sudden, this one came out of like, it was like this broker in Hawaii, and she was like, "Hey, I got this crazy deal in Memphis," and we're like, "What, Memphis?" And then I remember we were like, first we're like, "Nah, we don't want to do that," and then we saw it again, and the seller had this really compelling appraisal. It said that it was worth like all this money. We just had to fill it up, and so we had to go to battle with this other group to win it, and we ended up winning it. And we had to close it in like something crazy, like 3 weeks or something like that, like with a bridge loan.
Nuts.
And so it was a 380 unit property in Memphis. So that was like the first, but it was low hanging fruit. It was only like $4.4 million. It was like nothing. But it was D-class also. So we were like, well, we just paid, $3 million for this last one, $3.5 million for this last one. We could buy a 380 unit for 4.4. Let's make that transition and buy that one. And so that was the first like really big deal that we got into. And at at that time we got into it, we're like, oh, there's like a staff, like you get like a full staff, you get like a leasing office and all this stuff for these bigger deals. I think that's what really kicked off the larger appetite. So after that, we're like, oh, we should just buy these big ones. But that deal was really scary because it had about 30 people going in, 30 out every month. So if you didn't lease up 30, your occupancy starts dropping rapidly.
Wow.
And that was a really scary deal just from, banks don't want to lend on that kind of stuff too so easily. So, there's a whole other slew of things that happened on that deal that were extremely crazy, including the seller like disappeared before closing for like 3 days. And like, we were like, all right, we're ready to close. And the seller was gone. And it's because like gangs were chasing him and trying to kill him. So he like dipped out of state. Like, we're like, okay, we're about to buy this thing. So that was kind of wild with that property. But that was like the first deal that really got us thinking bigger, I think, at that time. And then after that, it was just scalability factor. So it's just like, all right, where else can we buy deals that are similar to that? But we didn't really, I don't think, now looking back on that last experience, I don't feel like we were that sophisticated. We were just hitting the market at the right time.
Absolutely.
We didn't really underwrite to the level that I'm underwriting now. Now the market is in a much different place than what it was back then. And so you can't be wrong in certain ways. We would just look at the price per door, think that was the way forward. And if we bought right, we'd be good. But there's so many other things that go into it that I know now that I didn't know before, to get into these deals. And so that's how, when I re-entered the market, I was like, I don't even know where to start. Like, we were just buying per door, and the per door price had doubled, since we got started in 2013. So, so we, went up to, I think 3,400 units, and then I ended up not working out with that current relationship. And so ended up, exiting out of that situation. And so that was the end of that. It was a good 3-year run.
Mm-hmm.
That relationship ended and transitioned. Actually, I went on a little bit of a sabbatical. So I got bought out of that company, and then I went and I traveled the world for like 100 days. And
I remember, I think I saw some of your Instagram feeds. So, explain that a little bit about that.
Well, I was just like, man, I can't wait to, like, I want to go travel a little bit. I was answering like, 200 emails a day for like 3 years. That's just everything, And all of a sudden it was like, all right, I got no emails anymore. Like, what am I going to do? I was like, I'm going to go travel a little bit. So I went to like 14 countries and like 33 cities in 100 days. I just went like everywhere I wanted to ever go in my life. And
God, that sounds amazing.
It was kind of crazy. I went solo because no one who else can do that. Who else is going to do that? So I was like, this is kind of a unique time in my life. Just going to go and explore a little bit. And so I started in Thailand. I booked a first class one-way flight to Thailand. And then I just figured it out from there. I'm like, all right, we're just going to end up. And I ended up booking, when I got to Thailand, I was like, I've always wanted to go to North Korea. So I booked that.
I remember seeing the photos of North Korea. I said, I really hope this guy doesn't do anything stupid and gets locked up. I see him on the news,
dude. Well, yeah, that was when Otto Warmbier was still in custody at that point. He was still alive. And they were just launching the first rockets up in the air when all that stuff was going down. And I was about to go in like a week after that, and I was freaking out. Like, I was just terrified. And so I had a buddy that I tried to back out of the trip like 4 times, and then they're like, hey, let me connect you with this guy in San Diego. He can tell you about it. So the guy was like, listen, man, just show up to the airport with your bags, and it's the Beijing airport. It's the only way in. And if it says, look at the screen, meet the people. Is like, if you want to go in the country, just go in. If not, back out. So I showed up, and it was like all these Europeans that just didn't care. It's like, oh yeah, this will be fun. And I was like, all right. And I saw like Pyongyang on the screen, and I was like, I got to do this. Whatever, let's go. And then they take your passport. You have your cell phone, but it doesn't work. There's no Wi-Fi. There's no contact with the outside world. I didn't really tell anyone that I was actually doing it. Before I did, I told a few friends, and they were like, "You're crazy. Don't do it. You're insane. You're going to get arrested." All this stuff. And then I just went in 5 days. Incredible experience. And then came back out, and then I had some pictures, and everyone was like, "You did it? What?" And so and then
I
I told
saw
my
that.
parents,
Yeah,
so they didn't freak out.
that was awesome.
Yeah, and then so that was that was probably like that alone was incredible. And then I flew back after this whole trip. I was what's weird is I always thought that the end of the road, like you're like, all right, what is the end goal? And I always for some reason thought that living on a beach completely, having a ton of money and that's like it. Then you're happy, then you're good, but that whole experience just taught me that is not at all what happiness is about at all in any way. I was miserable. By the end of that trip, I was like, man, I need to produce something. I was consuming so much for like 100 days straight. And I was amongst all these like poor backpackers and like other weirdos. And I'm like, man, like this is, I'm like, this is great. But I don't want to be like these, these hippies that are like going around with backpacks and all that stuff. And I wasn't really, I stayed at a hospital a couple times, but most of the time it was in like boutique hotels and stuff. But still, I was just like, man, I need to like do something again. So I left that. I left. I ended up in Australia, so I was down there for about a month as well, in New Zealand, and it was awesome. I'm like, I'm just going to travel till I can't travel anymore. And then finally, I was like, it's time for me to pack it in, head home after about 100 days, and I was just ready to get home. And I came back, and it was like February, and it was like blistering cold in Chicago. And I'm like, oh, this is so terrible. And that whole real estate side was gone. So I was like, well, all I have are these like nightclub friends still from back in the day. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I really want to open a restaurant or nightclub, because you really do become like who you hang out with, right?
Sure.
Like I believe that. And so I started to see myself going back into that, like, in that place, where it was like a bunch of, nightclub guys and restaurant guys. And I was like, I don't want to do that. It just doesn't seem like me. And so I just dipped. I was like, I'm going to go to Arizona. I had a friend that was living out there. He's like, hey, you should come check it out, live with me for a month. And then if you like it, just stay. And I moved to Arizona that March actually. And I got to for a month, and I was like, I got to stay out here. This is incredible. It's just a completely different landscape. It's warm 80%, like it's sunny 80% of the year. Mm-hmm. It's like the exact opposite of Chicago. Like right now, it's probably cold in Chicago. It's like 75 and sunny every day. So I'm like, man, this is awesome. Like I got out of there. I'm in Arizona, new landscape, kind of a fresh start. So I spent the next like year or so trying to figure out what to do, because I was like I had kind of like a bitter taste in my mouth from the last situation. So I was like, well, maybe I'll go into this business or that business. I was like trying little businesses and stuff like that, putting some money into different experiences, and none of them were really getting any traction because I just like wasn't passionate about it. I was just trying to make money.
Sure.
And so none of those were really my passion. And I had this like really deep knowledge and experience in my last, real estate situation. So I was like, well, in back of my mind, I'm like, I got to figure out how to use this, somehow, but I didn't really know. And I didn't want a partnership again. I was like turned off by the whole idea. I was like, I don't really want to do that. And so I just, eventually I was like, I gotta figure this out. And so I reached out to a couple people, did like built a mentorship, like went into the mentorship with this one guy that had like 8,000 apartments. And then, that was good, but it didn't really give me the tools I need. And then I reached out to this other guy who's kind of like a guru in the multifamily space. I'm like, hey man, like, I'm not really, he has like this student program, and he's like, hey, you can partner with us possibly, whatever. And I reached out, and I'm like, all right, I'm not a student really. I don't need your mentorship or any of that. I'm not going to pay for that. But if you want to do a deal, let's do a deal. I was like,
Sure.
one of the main things that I'm really good at is I can find these deals. I can dig them up and we can do it. And they're like, yeah, sure. Why not? So I did found 545 unit deal in El Paso. And they were like, yeah, let's do it. So I never worked with these guys before, but I was like, all right, well, let's try it out. So we ended up pursuing this deal, and I'm like, this is it. This is the one. We got this. I'm back. Like all this stuff. So turns out this is like the hardest deal of my life. Like it was insane how hard this deal was. Like we tried every single thing you could possibly do. We started the hardest part was we launched it in like Christmas. So it was like in the middle of Christmas where everybody's like gone trying to get investors to like pay attention to the deal. The deal's in this sub-market that's like kind of not well known and then maybe even has a negative connotation. I love the market, but a lot of people just didn't get across to them. It had a weird structure behind it. There were a lot of things that just went sideways in the very beginning. So we didn't launch right with the high net worth investors. But in this process, I was working with these new guys that had a whole like structure to their actual engine versus before we were just kind of like figuring it out as we went. These guys had like, all right, this is how we underwrite. This is how we do, how we actually pursue deals in this market. There's a really good underwriting tool that I use. And so I learned in this whole process how to like take all the knowledge and experience I had before and like change it into today's market and understand how to really do the business. Like I had all these ideas before that I couldn't put into play. Like, man, I wanted to rebrand the apartment complex. I wanted to do the work that was necessary to get these things online and work and running as they should be. I'm like, how do people do these B-class deals? I don't even understand that game. How does it work? Because we were just buying whatever at the time, mostly C-class stuff, and it was on a per door price basis. And so now I'm learning like the real game. Like this is like
the big leagues.
This is like what I've always wanted is to understand how to do the big game, even better. So now I'm like leveling up into this other world. And so my whole goal was I wanted to try to build a relationship through this deal with these guys, work hard enough, and then get in with them on like a more permanent basis so that we could just do a ton of transactions and scale the business. And they had about 1,000 units at the time and they want to go to 10,000. I'm like, well, I got to 3,000. So let's see what we can do. And so this deal was like the hardest, longest, most frustrating deal. It was a CMBS assumption on 2 deals.
And actually,
those take forever.
Hey, Garrett, before we continue on that, we're going to have to take a quick break. And I also want to go ahead and thank our sponsors, Element Studios. They are a full-service media company here in Chicago. So for all of your media production needs, go ahead and reach out to them. That's Element Studios, EL3MENT Studios. You can find them at elementstudios.com. Again, EL3MENT Studios.com. All right, we'll take a quick break. Okay, we're back. Garrett, thank you so much again. Let me just go ahead and thank our sponsors real quick. Element Studios is here actually with us in the house. Thanks, guys. That's Element Studios, EL3MENT Studios.com for all your media production needs. And Garrett, so you were saying, what a great story so far. I want you to continue where we left off. Their goal is to get to 10,000 units. So if you can just carry on with where you left off, that'd be great.
Let me continue. So, I was mentioning that this deal was extremely challenging. And so this is the deal. I thought this was it. I was like, I'm going to make all this money. It's going to be awesome. And, we had about, I think over $200K in the deal tied up as earnest money and all this stuff. And between my partners and I, but we're like, wow, this is going to be, I couldn't wait to close this deal, but it started, 6 months turned into, 8 months, and pretty soon we're like a year into this thing and we're already hard and all this stuff's going on. And then we had some flub towards the end and with our equity and the seller thought they could get more and it ended up falling out of contract and we ended up losing all of our earnest money.
How much was it?
the first deal back, north of 200 grand.
You lost 200 grand
So
on that deal.
I had,
Wow.
yeah. So like, it wasn't just me, but myself and my partner. So my first deal back, I'm like, man, this is going to be
God,
it.
I can
I'm
imagine.
back, and then we go out the gate and botch a deal and lose all this money. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe this is what just happened. Like, I got punched in the face, the hardest I ever got punched in that respect. But you know what? This is the biggest takeaway from all of it, is that if you think about like the defining moments in your life, everybody has them at some point, and think about what that one moment was where you're like, man, that really changed me for the better. At the time, I couldn't see it because it was so dark and so miserable. And now I know that was meant to help me. And now I'm in this way better place. Everybody has that. Any of those
Amen.
moments, they're all something bad. Every single one. It was rarely ever the good thing that happened that changed you in the direction you need to go to become somebody better. It's always something bad. And so the harder you fall, a lot of times you're rebounding. It may take a minute, but you're gonna be at another level when you come back from that. And so
I love
had
that, man.
a few of those.
That's great.
You know what I mean? Like, it's
Sure.
literally like that. And so I wasn't afraid of that anymore. I was like, I gotta do this. I worked that deal like a job for an entire year. I was making $0, and I was just working like so many hours on this thing, trying to figure out, pivot in every way possible to get this thing done. And it wasn't happening. And so, but in that process, I had built such a strong relationship with these guys that they trusted me a lot. And we built a really solid foundation to be able to do a lot of deals. And if we hadn't gone through that together and come out the other side, I don't think we would still be working together right now. So in that time frame, kind of the goal of accomplishing finding like my next partners to do the other thing, getting comfortable, getting my head around just even having partners, that was tough. So, we botched this deal, but luckily, like 3 months before this deal was about to go under, or 2 months before it was about to go under, we had somebody bring in or share with us a deal in Little Rock, Arkansas. And it was a 218 unit deal, and it penciled really well. It had a lot of good cash flow, and it was in one of the best areas of town. And so we put that one under contract. We won it and put it under contract. And using all the tools, all the underwriting that I had learned, like in this process, I was so thrilled, because your underwriting really makes everything. If you can underwrite well, I get really good at using this underwriting tool and underwriting well. It opens up the whole world to you, because now a deal, you can look at an OM, and if you know how to underwrite it well and it pencils right, and you can actually execute on that, now that's a deal versus someone that doesn't know how to underwrite. Like my last situation, I didn't know what I was doing. We were just making it up. And there's, probably still having problems with that tool now all of a sudden I got all these things available to me, and I can go underwrite. I still got to look through a crap load of deals to get to a good one, but now I at least have something that makes sense. And so we're buying, like, man, I'm in the best area of town. It's a C class property, C plus, and we can turn it into a real B because of the location of this thing. It's literally across the street from these mansions in Little Rock. This was like everything I ever wanted in a deal was this. I was like, man, this is like the next level stuff. Like, I could actually I'm going there in a couple of weeks. I'm actually going to stay on site because it's such a nice place. I'm like, this is
Hang out
fantastic.
at the swimming pool a little bit. Wouldn't be too bad either.
What's that?
I said you can hang out at that swimming pool a little bit.
Yeah. Right. So I was just going to, now I'm in this next deal, and we were like, man, the raise I think was like $4.6 million. So it was a little bit scary, but my business partner now, what he does, he has a platform that he has like his own podcast similar to this. He's got a book, then YouTube. All he does is the outreach, and he's the face of the company. And it's all he focuses on is being this like kind of almost guru-ish person. and it attracts a lot of high net worth investors. So we have a big pool of accredited investors to put into these deals and to communicate with. So I was like, this business, I'm going to make sure that I understand every single facet of the entire business, so that there's no blind spots. I can step in, fill any role if needed. I made a real, like, some of my deficiencies, maybe in my last business, I was like, I'm going to make sure that there are no deficiencies in this. So I leveled up and I became this like 10x version of the investor I was before. Now I'm like this. I know everything. I know all about how the debt works. I know all about how to raise the equity and how to put it into deals. I know all about the accounting, like every single facet. I made sure that I learned. I hired consultants to help me understand how to do all these things. I work with them on the side to understand how the accounting, how to create the chart of accounts and how to put things in the right buckets, and all about the balance sheet and a forensic view. So now I'm like this powerhouse partner. There's no blind spots in what I have to offer, and that's what I really wanted for this next role. And so now I've kind of stepped into this position. So as we pursued that deal, we were in the middle of that one. My partner was like, "Hey, man, let's start this engine up, and let's make you a partner in all deals moving forward, and we'll build this business together." And so that was like the biggest. I was like so happy when that happened. I was like, "Man, that is like all I wanted."
That's awesome. I'm hearing this and I'm so pumped. I mean, that is amazing.
Yeah, man. So that was like such a liberating moment for me, and then I can't even tell you, like, I hadn't closed the deal in it must have been like 2.5, 3 years. And then in August of this year, we finally closed in that 218 unit. And it was like, I can't even tell you the feeling of that. It was like, wow. And I owned as much of the general partnership as I had pretty much in my last partnership. And I actually raised money for the deal, close to $1 million for that deal myself, plus, their stuff. I signed on the loan for that deal. I did the whole loan. I did everything. I really had a major part in that deal getting across the finish line. And now I have a major part in making sure it works, that we're executing a plan. That, our CapEx budget is like $2.2 million on this deal. The deals we were doing before, I don't think we did about more than $700K. Big construction project was $700K for us. So now we're doing these major projects, and currently on our second deal, which is a 276 unit deal in Huntsville. That's actually a 1986 build, so it's a straight B class deal. And this is a $3 million renovation project. And this one,
what's the size of
we
that deal
just launched? What's that?
How much is that deal?
$18.1 million.
Okay.
So like I think our max in my last business, the biggest deal we did was like maybe $9 million, and the Little Rock deal was 11, and this deal is 18. And we launched our raise last Wednesday, and we filled it on like Tuesday. So the entire
hold on. How many days did it take you to raise the to do the raise?
Well, total. So it was Thursday, Friday, and then like Monday all the money was in the bank on Tuesday.
How much
so
again?
Probably like $5.6 million.
Jesus. Congratulations.
So that's the
that's phenomenal, man. That is amazing.
Yeah. So now the engine is like working really well, and we have this capacity. We probably realistically we're on the road to raising like $10 million for a deal just with our group of accredited investors. Like the whole process that we go through is it's getting really finely tuned, and I think our message and just everything about my partner and our team, it just translates well to what these investors want now. And there's ways you can make a lot of money doing it the right way versus how we maybe have done it before. I feel like this is more the right way, is to pursue these better deals in better areas of town, and in secondary maybe secondary markets where the cash flow is better. but it's a solid secondary market, like very good fundamentals in general. I mean, we weren't even looking at all that stuff before. Now I'm looking at the market fundamentals, seeing what is the job growth, the economic growth, what's happening, what's the development like in the area. I'm not just looking at the per door. All right, this is per door. This is what it is. There's so many other factors that go into it. And, you could still make a lot of money as a general partner on these bigger deals. I just didn't know how to really craft that before. And now I understand the entire game. And so I'm just like, wow, I couldn't have, with the last situation, I could not have become who I am today. I needed that. And I didn't realize it at the time. It was one of the hardest things I had to go through. But now I'm like, man, I see how things are going now. I'm in such a better place than I was before. And we have a ton of momentum. I could never dream of doing a B class, 1986 deal with a great value add. That deal's a real deal. There are people that we had to beat out 10 other people on that deal to win it. And we bought it $600K less than the top group bid on it. So wow. I know that there's amazing. Market demand.
Phenomenal.
So worst case scenario, if everything goes to shit, we can flip it for $600K difference, right?
Right.
But yeah, so now, things have just really started to exponentially grow, and my network of people is completely different. I didn't really have a good network before. I didn't realize it. I had to go out and rebuild everything from scratch, a whole new network, find all the people that were in the same industry as me that are doing big things, and figure out how to put together any acquisition. It's just a big puzzle. And you just got to figure out who is going to be a part of that puzzle and how you're going to split it up. And it's very simple. At the end of the day, it's find deals, raise money, put them together. Okay. Then you do a deal. Now there's a lot of inner workings to that. It's how do we break this up? Who's going to be involved? Who's my guarantor going to be? What kind of debt am I going to put on this product? It gets a little bit complicated, but the fun of it is being able to know enough to put that together in the right way and make the most sense. Like now I have so much fun putting together the debt for these deals. So like figuring out, all right, this is the deal. What is going to make the most sense right now based on where the market is? Is it going to be a bridge product? Is it going to be agency? What are we going to do? Like the deal in Arkansas that we did, I put some debt on that, some Fannie Green debt. We hit it at the perfect timing. Our interest rate, we rate locked at 3.48% on that deal.
That's ridiculous.
12-year fixed. And I put, and when you bump, like I just figured this out like in the process, but when you go from 10 to 12 years, it allows you to put 2 supplementals in there. So like, you got to always pay attention to the exit. It's like, okay, when we want to exit, if we're doing agency debt, there's a big prepay in there. And at some point we want to exit. How are we going to exit? Because the big issue is there's not enough leverage in the deal. If your deal, let's say you buy it for $10 million and then when you want to sell it, it's worth 15. Well, now your loan is only like 8 or 9, or let's say it's 8. Now there's a big gap. Like no one's going to come in and give you like 50-50, like 50% debt and then 50% equity to get into a deal. It's just not enough leverage for people. So you have to pay attention to that. So like this particular deal, I made the program in a way so that we can get 2 supplemental loans. So we can put a supplemental in year 2 to get our investors and cash them out, and then another supplemental on the exit. So they get high enough leverage to be able to exit at that higher price point. So now our debt will go from like 8 million up to like 13, and we can exit at 15. So something like that. So that is, that's just really fun to me now. But before I didn't even know any of that stuff. It's like, what are we doing here? So I'm like in this totally different place now, doing the deals I want. But I had to go through some pain to get here. And that, I'm okay with that. I mean, that was what it was. I learned so much in that experience. I'm so grateful for it. And I'm living in Arizona. I have a lot of great things happening, a lot of great people around me. And we're doing some big real estate deals that are a lot of fun. Our next deal will probably be north of 20 million. And we're just going to keep expanding that way. So yeah, that's kind of my story and how I've, kind of come up from there and how I got to where I'm at now.
That's amazing, Garrett. Man, I'm telling you, every time I speak with you, I get pumped. It's just such great advice, such a great story, and I'm so glad that you've shared it with the audience. I think, a lot of what you say is going to resonate with people who are going through some tough, dark times at the moment, and then just seeing, what you've achieved from bouncing back from that situation, and then just coming back and just hitting it big. I mean, that's very impressive, and definitely just want to say thank you again for sharing that. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
So yeah, it's funny because you're one of the few people that has seen it from the very beginning. So we've known each other for probably about 10 years, and you were there. Like I met you like right in the beginning of everything, which is
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Like I said, I mean, I remember that's from the days in Miami, and then to or when we were brokering deals out in the South Side of Chicago, and then now to seeing your progression to these larger deals, and it's just awesome, and I think it shows you that really, if you have the mindset and you work hard for what you're really trying to accomplish, you can really make it happen. In this case, do you feel that if you didn't move to Arizona, that none of this would have progressed?
I truly do feel I felt like I live a lot by my gut, and like I make a lot of gut instinct decisions, and for me, moving to Arizona was a way for me to just cut ties with all of the bad people that I had maybe been friends with in Chicago, or just people that didn't really serve me. I really wanted to pay attention to who I was around on a regular basis. And so I knew like in my gut that I needed to get away from all these people in the downtown scene. I just knew it. I'm like, this is not, before I had the real estate side to go on and some good influences in that space, but I don't have that anymore right now. And I need to figure out how to at least get away from this. I just knew I saw myself starting to go in that direction. And I'm like, man, why am I opening like a freaking sushi restaurant or something? Like I literally was trying to open a sushi restaurant at one time. And I'm like, this is not me. Like, didn't feel right the entire time. And I had some money to put into a business, but I was just like, I would go into these things and I'm like, man, this just doesn't feel right. And so getting to Arizona, I think, was just a way for me to just completely cut it off, start over, start fresh. And I did like a fitness show in that time, which was pretty cool. Where I dropped like 35 pounds of fat in like 12 weeks and put on like 10 pounds of muscle. And then I think I was at like 25% body fat. I went down to 6 in like 12 weeks.
Wow.
There's like a whole different culture out here that definitely helped put me in the right mindset. Now there are a ton of days where I was still lost, like trying to figure it out. And I think I just didn't want to admit that I need to go back into that industry. It was the uphill climb seemed to be too far for me. And that was challenging to think about. I'm like, man, I really I think I was in denial that I really had to start over. And, from the bottom with the multifamily, but my value and the amount of knowledge that I had in the space, once I started to like put that out there, people started to take notice. Like, man, who's this guy? What happened? Like, what was all this? What's going on? And pretty soon, once I found that network through my partners, I started to go to events. I went to like 2 events a month, and everyone I was meeting at these events are all doing deals. I'm like, oh my God, this is like a whole other area of the business I never even knew existed. And then at that time, meeting all these people, I was like more empowered because I'm around all these people that are doing big deals. I'm like, I can do this. This whole time I was like made to believe that maybe I just didn't have it. And I was like, it was just a mindset thing. To be honest, I did have it. I just needed to unlock it. I need to stop listening to people in the past that maybe told me that I couldn't do it, because I had every capability. And you start to look at those people that maybe told you that you didn't want to do it. They just didn't want you to get bigger than them. And they, or they have maybe their own insecurities and fears why they tell you these things. But I really believe that you can learn any anything you really put your mind to and you really want to learn. And I just, I realized like the biggest realization for me in this process is that my happiness is not going to come from me getting to this exit point where I have all this cash and I'm just sitting there and I'm happy. The real happiness comes from the pursuit of your greatest potential on a daily basis. Why do I get up at 5:30 every morning now? Why am I continually looking to push myself and expand and be out of my comfort zone? That's where your real happiness exists, is when you're pursuing that. And so surrounding myself with the people that are doing in similar mindsets was a big, big part of that, because then you start to relate with those people. And I just signed up for a group called EO, which is an entrepreneurship organization. And it's basically this, every single person in there has to own a business, and you're around those people and you start to, everybody relates in a different way than the normal 9-to-5ers relate. I knew I was never going to be a 9-to-5er. It just wasn't going to be me. Could never work for somebody. And as soon as it starts to feel like that was the case in any way, I'm like, dude, I'm out. It's not for me. I've never worked, except for that 6-month period. I've never worked for anyone. I've always figured out a way to create something or make money in some other way. And so, that's just how things kind of evolved. And, I'm grateful for that move for sure. That was a big, big part of it.
That's awesome, man. I think a lot of people are going to look at their circle and start to really think about where they are in life, and
Well, dude, it's tough to do it, John. Like it's tough. It's really tough to break away from maybe your best friend that does not serving you anymore. Some of the people that were in my circle were just complete negative energy, but we were like still friends. We're friendly on a regular basis. We always joked about the same things and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, I was like, man, this guy isn't elevating his life. This isn't important to me anymore. I did not know how to get away from it, because I didn't want to just be completely lonely. So I'm like, dude, I just got to break this and like figure it out somewhere else. And that's what happened. I just broke the entire thing. I had to make a big shift in order to get away from that circle of friends that I didn't want to be around anymore. And then, that was a huge, now I'm forced to find a new circle of friends. And now I get to pick who it is. Like one of the circle friends I found in Arizona he's like one of my buddies I look up to a ton. He started a company called Enjoy, and his investor was Sean Parker of Facebook.
Wow.
Invested $100 million into his company. And so there's a group of guys like that are really successful. Another guy, his name is Dean Graziosi. He's a pretty big motivational guy, but these guys are all like hang out and box with this one trainer. And I got into that group and I was like, man, I'm going to box these guys. I didn't even care to box. Like I didn't care about any of that stuff, but I got to get to know these guys.
Yeah, you didn't care about getting punched in the face as long as it was for these guys, right? I'm with you.
Yeah. So that was my in. And I was like, now I got these really good mentors around me that are just, I can like talk to and grab coffee with and build a relationship with, so any way that I could get around people that I wanted to be like, I would just do that. And even my partners now, they're really, really smart guys and extremely, they have their own things and they love my ideas, man. I'm so pumped about that. Like all of the ideas I had before and how the business should be done, how we should brand ourselves, all this stuff, like they love it. And we work together well on that. Like the creative side of me was kind of squeezed out before. And now it's like thriving. Like I have this, it's celebrated in a way. It's like, man, how do you think like that? Like, how do you know that that we're supposed to, this is what our logo and our brand should look like on this deal? Or how do we, like when we're signing this, how do we know that this is the right marketing that needs to go in place? How did you just like think of that? And I'm just like, man, I don't know. I just have it in my head. It just comes out. And so that whole creativeness in me is coming out now. And it's just, I can't tell you the difference in where I was before and where I am now. It's completely changed me, but I had to get my ass kicked to get there.
Wow, Garrett. Well, you know what, man? I want to say this story is just I'm going to be thinking about this all day. I'm going to be thinking about this all. And the thing is, every time we talk, I mean, we share different stories, and every time I hear it again, it's just another wake up call. To just get up and go out there and conquer the world. That nothing can really stand in your way at all. So what else?
Yeah,
What else are in the plans? You coming to Chicago anytime soon? Here, are we gonna?
Yeah, I mean, we got the holidays coming up, of course. So I get to pop in for a little bit. But I have so I live in Arizona now, so that my I'm in close proximity to Cabo San Lucas. So I it's cool when you're out this way. I have next weekend I just get to go down there for the weekend, and we got this big mansion and a bunch of buddies getting together, and we're just gonna have a good weekend in Cabo. And so I pop down there pretty often. Being out on the West Coast, I can get to LA pretty easily. So the cool thing about my business now too is that we all work remotely, and we work so that we can live the best lives that we want to live. So if somebody wants to go on a trip, they're just hey, I'm out next week. And then we figure it out. And it's a really cool culture. Awesome. Because we do everything through Zoom calls. We do everything remotely. And when shit needs to get done, we do it. I am working, when I am in the saddle, I am going hard, for 16 hours, whatever, just going at it. And I do it on it very often, but if we want to break off and go do something, there's a lot of rope on that. No one even questions it. Everybody's just all right, cool. I think my partner went on 3 vacations over the summer, and it was just whatever, we figured it out. And so it's a really cool culture now that we have now. I don't have an office. I literally work from home or go to a WeWork or something on a daily basis. But we're doing big deals, and we're getting a lot done, and we're honing everything. Everything is just builds upon itself. It's always chaotic. I mean, regardless, even in the property management business, and this too, there's always something out of your control that's crazy about it that's happening, but you just keep pressing forward, just keep moving. And that's just the truth of our business. So it's never perfect. And you just keep taking that next step forward to build that business out to where it needs to be.
I think that's great that you say that, because a lot of people are I think you figured it out, actually. The fact that you should enjoy life while you're living and work. You don't have to wait for 10 years into retirement to enjoy your life. You can actually enjoy your life today, and you just have to figure out you have to figure out a way to make that balance work. And that's great that you mentioned that, because it is possible. It is totally possible. Well, Garrett, thank you again for everything. I can't wait to see the next email come on my inbox that says just closed, 276 units. And those are great. Those are definitely inspiring. So I just want to say thanks again, man. I really do appreciate it, and look forward to just seeing all the great things that you're doing, and just looking forward to seeing your growth. So your continued growth.
Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah. Appreciate it, man. Same to you. You're kind of you're a big deal in Chicago. You guys ever look at John? His name, his Gill name is everywhere. So look at the. There's some buildings in Chicago just say Gill, 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 and Gill, Gill, and
Yeah, you give me a lot of shit for that,
cool,
but
man.
Oh man, that's awesome.
I love it.
All right, man.
Well, thanks so much for having me, John.
All right, thanks, brother. I appreciate it, and I will be in talks.
Sounds good.
All right, take care. All right, bye. Well, that was a great episode. We want to thank again Garrett Lynch for coming on. And we also want to thank our sponsor, Element Studios. That's Element, E-L-3, M-E-N-T Studios. They're a full-service media production company based here in Chicago and the surrounding suburbs. So if you need anything media-related, go ahead and reach out to them. Thanks again.